Welcome. It's time. It's time to drop in, open up, and receive. It's time to remember. It's time to believe. Let's elicit the beautiful, the good, and the true. It's time for me. It's time for you. Hello, and welcome back to the channel. I am so excited, you guys. Today on It's Time, we have our first ever guest, the exquisite Katy Meade-King. Katy, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I feel very honored to be your first guest.
You should. For those of you who are new to Katy, I met Katy, I guess it was 6 years ago now, 2019, which is wild, what has happened with time. I discovered Katy on Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow's fabulous wellness platform. I was seeking spiritual counsel and mediumship training and just healing and support. And I read she was like that, soul spiritual sister that I never had. And I was like, okay, must book. And Katy has been really instrumental in my awakening journey and feeling normal about, claiming some of these intuitive energetic gifts, although what is normal? But just feeling a degree of confidence. And I am so honored to be sharing Katy's frequency and her medicine and her delightful, playful spirit with you all today. So, welcome, Katy. I would love for you to introduce yourself. I know what you do has probably evolved over the years. So, in your own language and your own words, I would love for you to just share a bit about your offerings and who you are in this world.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Um, yeah, so whether you can tell from my accent or not, I'm based in the UK, and so I've only ever met Jillian via Zoom, and it's kind of amazing that this work is so effective over remote platforms like this. And actually, in many ways, sometimes it's even more effective, I feel like, because the
Yes.
physical is not getting in the way, and you can get right into the field of pure coherence, and there is no time, linear space, different distance between us. So, this is how I'm used to seeing you, isn't it?
Yes. Brilliantly said, brilliantly articulated. Yes.
So, a little about me. Ever since I can remember as a little girl, I used to see and communicate with energy orbs, light orbs, in my bedroom as a child at night. I'd lie in the dark and see these beautiful colors and lights all around, and it would be telepathic communication. It wouldn't be out loud, but it would be conversational. And I never really thought much of it. And I remember as a kid, you don't really talk about these things, but I think I mentioned it and asked my other friends what they talked about at night to the lights in their room. And
They
they
didn't
looked
have
at me.
lights?
They didn't have lights and they looked at me a little dumbfounded. And it was probably I was around about maybe 7 or 8 when I
Wow.
realized that, not everyone is having this all night long. So I feel like over a couple of years after that, I started shutting it down, saying, okay, no, I need to sleep now. And especially as a kid, you're learning lots at school, tired. I really did need physical rest. So I just worked really hard at shutting it down. And then I guess maybe in my sort of age 16, 17, I got really drawn to reading books about Buddhism.
Mm.
My maternal grandfather studied a lot of Buddhism, especially Zen Buddhism. So I had a lot of books available to me when I would go to there, and I just got into it. I didn't really think much of it, that I was reading that kind of book rather than fiction books,
Sure.
but as a teenager. And then really the pivotal moment was when I was 20 years old, and it was the second my father passed.
Yeah.
And I was in my bed at home, fast asleep. I had said my goodbyes, kind of, the evening before, and he was in hospital, sadly. And at 3 a.m. on the dot, he woke me up back in that childhood bedroom where I'd been talking
Wow.
to the orbs as a kid, and woke me up and just made it so unbelievably clear that he had passed to spirit, but that he was well, that everything was okay, and that he was safe, and there was nothing to worry about. He'd passed smoothly. And 3 minutes later, the hospital rang us in the middle of the night to obviously confirm that.
Sure.
And yeah, basically since then, I've been on a real interesting journey. Age 20, I was at university. I'd been through quite a heavy couple of years with my father's illness, and I feel like the passing had turned me into a bit of a mess in many ways.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
it was really in those like few days, I feel like after my father's passing, he was so present with me. The communication was so strong constantly. And I also had started having communication again from what I now know were my spirit guides, but I could tell they weren't my dad, but they
Us.
were supporting me. They were telling me where to put my thoughts, telling me where to focus, telling me how to help myself in the beginning of grief.
Yeah. Was that the
Um,
first time you had felt spiritual energies distinctly like that? Like, wow, I'm
yeah,
feeling my father. Now I'm also feeling these other spiritual energies that are benevolent and supportive, but they're specifically not my dad.
yes,
Wow.
absolutely. Um, and yeah, it was really interesting the different bits of guidance I'd get to navigate my grief. But then also 3 months after my dad died of cancer, I took my boyfriend to the hospital,
Oh,
and they told me that he needed to stay there. And 2 weeks later, he got diagnosed with cancer too. And
mm,
I guess probably anyone who's listening to this podcast has been through their hard stuff.
yeah.
And I guess that was probably the hardest point in my life. I was still doing my university degree. I was grieving, trying to look after my mum, trying to be present as my boyfriend was going through absolute hell.
Yeah.
And he got like a 20% chance of surviving this cancer. And it was a lot of fear. I think I was just
Mm,
completely, my whole nervous system was enwrapped in fear.
mm,
Consumed. My anxiety was through the roof. I think I everything I was shaking
yeah.
with everything I did. And I didn't, it was back in 2009, so there wasn't really that, oh, you need to go see someone about your grief. I'm in
Sure.
the UK. I'm sure you've heard the whole chin up, we're British, deal with it
Yeah.
type
Cheerio.
thing. Yeah, exactly. And so there was like well, there are people suffering way worse than you are. Get on with it.
Mm,
And it's so interesting after how so many years, I just look at that me and I just want to hold her
oh,
so much. But I didn't get very much support and I turned into a real physical mess from holding everything so tightly in survival mode. And
yeah.
I'm sure everyone can know,
Relate.
yeah, know what that feels like at points. And so he had treatment for about 3 years. And probably towards the end of that 3 years, someone said, oh, when I was grieving, I saw this hypnotist. You should go see him. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'll
Why
try it.
not? Yeah.
And he was such a special soul. I don't know to this day, like, if he was an angel sent. I don't
Mm.
even know if he was real. There is no reference to him online anywhere. There is no, like, he's disappeared from
Wow.
that point.
Wow.
And I'd never been hypnotized before. And I just remember feeling so safe, so
Mm.
heard. And if it was the first space where my spiritual questions of the things that I'd experienced had their space to be heard and respected.
Mm.
And he would put me into a deep hypnotic state and we'd go through these things. And
Wow.
it was so interesting. Maybe now it's that sort of people who do not past life regression therapy, but that really deep, maybe in between lives that hypnotherapy, maybe where these deep, deep answers were just coming through. And he also taught me how to meditate. Maybe it was
Mm.
self-hypnosis at the beginning to just give myself that space for my nervous system to have reprieve
Yes.
throughout the day. And I just got so, so connected to it. Every day after work, I then did graduate. I did really well. And I got a job. And I was a fashion designer. And so
Wow.
working in London as a fashion designer, pretty
I
cutthroat,
didn't know
like
that. Wow, that's so
competitive
fun.
industry. Yeah. And I did women's wear, fashion design, and but in the evenings I would meditate. And I just it kept going every evening and then suddenly something clicked. And in one of my meditations, the room disappeared. It the There was no differentiation between the furniture around me and the air itself, and me and the furniture and the air. Like everything melted
Mm.
into almost like, I guess, liquid air is how I can, I don't, but now I know, having come this far, it's plasma light. And every now and then I'd have these moments of real clarity, visits from higher beings, and I was kind of super open a lot. And I'd shoot out into this space with real ease, but never really knowing what was going on and then how to ground myself.
Mm.
And it was actually my mother said that she'd been seeing a medium after my dad's passing. And I said, what a load of rubbish. This person is a crook. They are abusing your grief and, all this stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably connect with that sentiment. So it's so beautiful that
Yeah.
you're sharing that that's how you felt. I
Oh, I
felt
had
very
it.
similarly.
And my mum was like, really? It's been so helpful to me. Just see. Of course, I went. It was amazing. It was huge healing. And in that session, she said, you can do what I do. You know that, right? And
Mm.
I said, hmm. And she said, you need to go learn about it. And she directed me to, um, we have spiritualist churches here in the UK. The It kind of has a Christian element because they talk about the light of Jesus, Christ consciousness, etc. And they're often maybe held in old churches, whatever. But the one she directed to me to was 10 minutes from my flat in London. So I just went there for ages to go experience other mediums, to listen, and they had circles to learn. But these were open circles. Anyone could just come. And after a few goes, I was like, this is not good. Because there are some out there people in this world.
Sure. Yeah.
And I am not an out there person, but you may disagree with that towards the end of our conversation.
Yeah, you'd be on the outside looking in, you come off as super conventional and, married, family, just, yeah, it's always funny when you get this inside look of people. But yes, please proceed. So you were encountering energies that were not, would you say
Yes,
not aligned or not even of the
not
light of
aligned
God?
and not maybe just not safe. There were people who clearly did probably quite a lot of recreational drug use and
Ah.
um, were had some entities around them, and I found it very affronting that this was allowed in. It just
Yeah.
didn't make sense to me. I felt these things needed to be dealt with before coming into a sacred circle
So there
where
wasn't a curation of that.
no,
dangerous potentially for
Well,
people who are
exactly.
new and don't know what they're encountering. That can be very damaging. I'm glad you enacted your discernment at that time.
I did, and it was around then that I started signing up for like Reiki courses. So I learned, I think quantum touch first, then Reiki, and then Anusha. And this was something I just do secretly at the weekends. By the way, no one in my life knew that I was doing any of this
Not
in the
even your
evening.
mom?
No, not
Wow.
my best friend,
Wow.
no one.
Fully in the closet.
I
Wow.
was very, it was my, no, but it was something so sacred to me.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. I in the closet invokes an image of shame. That is not what
Yeah.
you're experiencing. Thank you for clarifying that. That's
I mean,
not
I do talk about being fully out of the spiritual closet, not because I was in the spiritual closet because of shame. It was more because of, what's the word? Just, I didn't have the conviction fully yet, maybe. I was still
protection.
feeling things out.
Yeah.
And, but somehow the universe got me invited by the number one teacher of the London College of Psychic Studies, who did her own medium's masterclass at her home once a month, every Thursday. Somehow she called me and invited me to this medium's masterclass. So this is for professional mediums who already did platform mediumship and that kind of thing around London, or healers, etc. And I was like, I'm only 21. I've never done anything professional. But the universe directed me. She's still a great friend of mine. Um, she she's now in her mid 80s, but still a heck of a powerhouse of a woman. But she's from a very smart part of Wimbledon. She wears her like cashmere twin set and pearl necklace and always has her hair done. And so I just felt safe. I get a little unnerved with the incense smoking, tie-dye, drum banging. It's just doesn't, I just couldn't resonate with it.
Yeah.
Although I have just been to my first wellness festival this weekend where there was a lot of that. And
How did it feel this go around?
well, I had my protection down very solidly, but yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, there's a definite distinct energy in that more almost shamanic base. It feels a lot
Exactly.
more earthy
It
and
is.
at time feels a little bit more demonic and in moments for me as opposed to Christ-like when I'm in more angelic mediumship
Yes.
energies. And I'm not saying there's that drum circles are demonic or that's, but there's sometimes a darker energy that gets rattled, I think, in
It's a
the,
heavier earth frequency that gets rattled.
thank you.
And,
Yeah.
that's, it's a really important distinction. I very much respect the shamanic area of this, but really yes, it's ancient, but it has its roots in very dark times, right? Where people were in the rainforest doing all kinds of things. And there had to be that powerful, almost like hit of energy, even with the plant
Plant
medicine
medicine,
that
yes.
is used. It's a real like boom
Yep.
to the system to almost shake someone into their consciousness or healing or awakening. It's some people are drawn to that because that's what they feel they need, or everyone says they're called to plant medicine.
Yeah,
I've
that's a
never
whole
had
other
that before.
that's a whole other topic. That's
Yes, it is a whole other topic. But it's interesting. My teacher has the one I'm talking about, my mentor, she always is like, why would you do that when you can have the divine light and
Hmm.
highest frequency possible? They work on a very low frequency, which has its importance.
Sure.
It's just different.
Yeah, very different.
And so she taught me about really in depth about the chakra system, about um, grounding, about opening up and closing down, and using your doorkeeper and your spirit guides to um, invite energies in. And then you say goodbye to them. Her analogy was always when you're doing mediumship work, you're at the beginning when you open up fully, it's almost like you're sending out an invitation to a house party, right? But you just want people coming in one at a time.
Hmm.
You don't want the stampede of anyone coming in, and everyone must have an invitation who's coming, who's allowed in. And then at the end of the party, you don't just, you know, let everyone stay when you're going to bed because the party's over. You say, thanks so much for coming. And you say goodbye to them out the front door. And then once everyone's out, you close it, lock the door, and tidy up. And it's
Yes.
kind of like that when we do mediumship. Energetic hygiene is probably the most important thing she taught me, other than not letting my frequency shoot up through my crown chakra so quickly because I was so excited to be in my space of people who got it and who saw me and respected me and I could speak about these things. There is such a relief when you can fully be yourself.
Wow.
So once a month, that was my like battery recharge space.
Did you feel fully safe in that circle? Fully
Yes,
seen, fully
fully safe,
confident? Really?
fully, there were times when we'd open up our chakras and connect to spirit, and I would just, I was young, I was excited, and my energy would just shoot up and out. And I remember, I think it was twice, I was sort of hovering up around the ceiling above my body. And when we open up, our feet are flat on the floor and your palms are either rested down on your thighs or open on your thighs when we do it. And I just remember I couldn't move my fingers. I couldn't use my mouth. My physical body and I were not connected. There was no, and
Wow.
thankfully, like I do when I teach intuitive development, I am watching everyone like a hawk to make sure that no one is shooting up because it's unnerving. And also doing things too quickly, it can affect your nervous system because your chakra system is located at points of major nerve ganglia, as well as your lymph system. And so when those chakras are maybe getting too expansive, your nervous system can go into overdrive and you can get raised heartbeat, sweating. It can feel almost like maybe a panic attack might. Um, and so it's really important that we don't have that rush to expansion. It's got to be a really respectful, um, slow process. So I still do the process that she taught me before and after every single client I see. Even if it's back to back, I still go through everything that she taught me. And even if I'm not seeing clients, I still ground myself, protect my energy every day. Um,
Yes.
And I'm aware of that because it is important as a sensitive person that we have respect for our energy body and our physical body because they're so intimately linked.
Yeah, I want to take a moment, just stay here for a second to just emphasize this before you go on sharing about your experiences, because I know firsthand I was someone who got overexcited by spiritual gifts. It
Yeah.
feels so good, right? When you
Hmm.
described, wow, I'm looking at a mentor who's, wearing pearls and I feel like she's a normal gal that I can respect and she's a powerhouse and I'm with these people and I'm not afraid and I can do this. And there's a certain almost high when you connect with these higher frequencies. It is
Mm.
literally a higher frequency than where we're often residing in our day to day, making coffee, prepping a meal, whatever it is we're doing in our grounded 3D lives. And so I know I was very eager to spend so much time channeling and all of my days, and very eager to quickly launch a career. I was trained, I did a few different trainings. Unfortunately, it was not in a church setting. I think I probably would have benefited from more community, more structure. But when you take off running, and I probably went at a rate that was a little faster than what would have been truly honoring. And I remember one time, and we emailed a bit about this, you had recommended to me in a session what came through was to balance professionally and maybe do some tutoring of children or do something else for a lot of reasons. I think that was coming through, not to put financial pressure on mediumship gifts, to also balance energetically, to not be spending all day, every day in the clouds, essentially.
Yeah,
And I was hesitant to accept that until years later, in hindsight, as hindsight often provides a much clearer lens, I can now see the importance of that. So I do just want to offer to the listeners who are feeling so excited, perhaps, about new spiritual gifts that are coming online, or
yeah,
feeling safe to maybe you saw lights just like Katy when you were a little girl, and now 30 or 40 or 50 years later, you're finally claiming that or owning that, or maybe you went to see a medium or a hypnotist for the first time, or an energy worker or a spiritual teacher. I just want to kind of couch that excitement with an important understanding that your nervous system will guide you, and there's no rush. There's no rush to figure it all out, to do all the
yeah,
trainings, to really, like, slow and steady wins the race, I think. So I'm
yeah.
glad we touched on that.
Because it is a lot for the physical body to be in that space. Before I open up, every time I set a dedication for my raising my frequency and going into pure coherence. And part of that is very much connected to connect. I ask, please help me connect to the highest possible frequencies of love, light, healing, truth, and oneness that my physical body can safely maintain.
Yes.
Because my teacher, maybe she wanted to scare me, but she said, in all the old books and the stories, and even now, when you go to the spiritualist churches, you see some of those mediums and they are not in good physical shape.
Yeah.
Like you think about the old witch in the woods had the hunchback and the hobble and the stick and the, you know, and I knew mediums who were very unwell, which is so surprising given their clarity and awareness. But they lived disconnected from the physical.
Yes.
And what I know now very much is that the physical body is actually the portal to your enlightenment. Your physical body is not holding you down. It is not separate to the divine. It is the divine. It is the cathedral of your soul. And so I feel that initial excitement. Everyone's, especially when I teach or when I talk about chakras, etc., everyone's like, yeah, but the third eye and crown chakra. And if anything, it's the root chakra is unbelievably important. It's that base. We need to be grounded so that, like a tree needs to have its roots so coherently connected to the earth so it can grow in a steady, strong alignment to create its branches upwards. And we're kind of the same. The trees that haven't taken the time to really root themselves in the earth, they're the first ones to go in the storm because they've got spindly trunks and they're not connected. And that's kind of the same.
Yes. I always appreciated how you emphasized that, and also really made it clear that you wanted me, all your clients, all your students to be able to have robust, grounded lives, to be in a book
Yeah,
club, or to have a husband, a partner, a kid, a dog,
yeah,
hobbies, interests, and that I think a lot of people assume that when you go into this spiritual land, you take off, like a hot air balloon or something, and then are unable to have a glorious 3D life. And you were always such a way shower for me. And that when you do this properly and you take care of your vessel properly, and that was such a beautiful, the cathedral to your soul. I hope you all received that. Like, that was like chocolate melting in my mouth hearing that. It was so delicious. When you take care of your vessel, you can enjoy the spiritual and the earthly realms. It's all divine, and you can build an abundant, joyous life. It doesn't have to be that the medium becomes sickly and it's not the witch in the woods anymore. It doesn't have to turn into, an iron deficit, or there's all different studies now about what these
Oh,
types
yeah.
of gifts, what they can actually do to our physiology, our neurochemistry, even just balancing the hemispheres of the brain.
Mhm.
There's so much that you've taught me about making sure we, preserve the sanctity of our bodies as we're exploring these energetic phenomenon. So thank you for that.
Well, this work is all about balance. Well, this work, life itself, is all about balance, everything balance. But this work, so much of it is actually to do with respect,
Mm.
respecting what you are opening up to receive, those higher frequencies, but also respecting your field and your physical body, your emotional self. You know, respect plays a huge part. And when you are so focused on being in that heightened space of frequency, love, light, oneness, you're actually not respecting the fact your soul chose to have embodiment in this life.
Mm.
And when you are not respecting yourself in a sort of low level but quite clear way, the universe will start showing this in all kinds of different ways, be that relationships, be that career. If you're not respecting yourself, you're not going to receive respect from the universe. And we have to really notice those little nudges from the universe so they don't turn into big shoves. So
Yeah.
that's why I teach. My teacher told me, she was like, you need to teach this. And so I teach intuitive guidance, and it's something I love so much. I teach everyone exactly how I do it. And we then hold a monthly practice circle so that everyone can still use their gifts. They have other jobs and other careers. This is their sacred thing. But it is really important to be taught by someone who really knows this world, because I have been in those spaces that initially I would have been like, yeah, cool, this is great. But my intuition is going, you need to leave now. This is not okay. And I know of people who have come to see me after doing all kinds of different workshops, even not intuitive guidance, connect to your guides ones, even just breath work workshops. And practitioners who are doing these spaces open people up so huge. And then at the end, they're like, okay, thanks
Bye.
so much. Bye. And I've had people come to me after huge retreats that they spent a lot of money on, big international names and stuff, and they are frazzled
Yeah,
because
it's
they've had to get on an airplane home or get on the underground or whatever, and then go to the supermarket and live their lives, and they are like, the whole system has been fried, basically. And so I think there's a lot of irresponsibility in this space. Back when I was learning, it was still very niche. This wasn't a big thing. Even when I started this, when I quit my fashion business, well, yeah, I had my own business. I had a business partner. We were about to do big things in London with our bespoke women's wear, and my business partner pulled out at the very last minute.
mm,
And I was like, what? And the universe pushed me to where I needed to go.
as
But
it always does.
as it always does, yes. And so I listened. But loads
Mm.
of us don't listen, and we get wrapped up in the hype. And I feel like a lot of people so passionately and beautifully follow their excitement. And I feel in some of these spaces, there are people who do mean well and they want to help people on their spiritual awakening, their intuitive work, but actually don't have the intense knowledge about what working with that comes with
Yeah, the
and how to,
training, the support,
yeah,
the
exactly.
mastery.
I did it for what, I think 8 years before I started Soul Spirit, seeing people professionally. I used to volunteer at different spiritual churches on the weekends and stuff, but I didn't do it professionally for a very long time.
Yeah, I will say this in full transparency, and I've had private conversations with a few of my clients, but I wound up running my own intuitive trainings and teaching a few people who I later then sent your way and referred to you. I thought at the time, oh yeah, I'm equipped to do this. I'm equipped to teach this. I've been doing this for, 3 years or whatever. And in hindsight, truthfully, seeing how some of these people then took those gifts and what I probably should not have been running those trainings, and that's part of what I've come to and have decided to shut down my business for a bit and be offering my spirit and essence in other ways because I knew a lot and I had great training. And also, there's a lot more that I should have encountered and experienced before allowing people to come and train with me. And so there's a humility that I do think a lot more of us could use. I think so many people want to just, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. As soon as I learn it, I want to teach it, which is amazing and great. Like you said, follow your excitement, but also these gifts, I don't know if you can hear Bubbles whimpering right now. He's crying about this, but they're no joke, right? And you see the effects. I've seen people after ayahuasca ceremonies or retreats or just sound healings or all
Mhm.
sorts of, I've been to some of these experiences where I won't even go to group sound healings anymore just because I feel so rattled and I'm getting other people's stuff and I can't even really, I feel like I have to curate the space when it's not my job if I'm supposed to be there receiving medicine.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
that's what
wait,
I felt on the weekend
yeah,
at
I'm
this
like,
point.
I'm actually working this event and I thought I came here to, receive. So, yeah, just a note to invoke your discernment when you're searching for teachers and really understand that there should be a rigorous training involved. There should be a real strong foundation for these gifts so you can stay grounded, so you can stay healthy and pure and connected to light. And, there's all sorts of ethical things that can emerge in this work as well. And really having, I'm sure um, there's a lot of stuff around attachment that can emerge, right? If something's coming through, just like you've offered me guidance that I couldn't take till 4 years later. If you were attached to that, if you were attached to Jillian, you have to break up with him. Like he is dangling carrots. He is not good for you. And I'm like, but I still, if you were attached and gripped to that in a way where it impacted your well-being, that would impact how you show up as a spiritual teacher or a channel. So also, that mastering the art of detachment, I'm sure many of your Buddhist books were a bit supportive in that, but there's so much that goes into holding space, connecting to energy, and yeah, just please, please, please use your discernment and just sort of my heartfelt apology to those of you who perhaps came to me at a time when I should have had more training, frankly. So,
Well, that's real loving, heartfelt humility. But everything happens for a reason. Those people found you for a reason, and you gave them what they needed at that time. And that's kind of the same with when I see clients and how I teach being the intuitive development and being a medium. What happens is, yes, I'm Katy Meade-King, but actually, Katy steps
steps
aside.
aside. Yeah.
Katy steps aside. And I am just a pipeline. I am just a vessel. The information that comes through, a lot of it I don't remember
Mhm.
afterwards. People will come back, and I do write some notes, especially if it's a healing appointment of what we touched on because that's important. But people are like, do you remember? And this came through and that. And I'm like, nope. And even, I have people going through really deeply, whether it's healing or mediumship work that they're seeing, deeply traumatic times.
Mm.
And I am not a psychotherapist. They had that option. Some of them have gone through that for years, but for some reason the universe put them into me. I don't have that training. And it's interesting. I was thinking last week, I was like, maybe I'm the therapist because I have a lot of therapist clients.
Yeah.
But I can't live my life. I am a wife. My boyfriend, who had the cancer, is now my husband. He is all well. He's the father
Oh,
of my child. So, you know, thankfully, everything turned out as it's
man.
supposed to. But I couldn't finish connecting with people in such an intimate way and then just go and have dinner with my husband and put my kid to bed or whatever in that space. That would just not be possible. There has to be that detachment from the experience that you've held space for, but also what has come through you as a channel. So the throat chakra is actually, I would say, more important, the most important chakra for doing mediumship. Because what you are doing is opening up your center of clear communication. And I ask that I communicate with absolute clarity and compassion at all times. And if anything starts to come through to you in an appointment with someone that sounds like their opinion or they're feeling something about it, that's not from spirit. And also, spirit will never give you what to do. They will give you information to open your eyes to another perspective or clarify your vision in some way, but they will never give you the direction of what you must do because they respect the power of free will that we as spiritual, soulful beings in a human incarnation have the gift of, the power of free will. So if you are getting instruction, like, yes, your relation is very unhealthy, you must break up with him, that's the opinion of the medium.
Right. Yes. This is huge.
That is not from spirit because they cannot tell you what to do.
And that's not the tone of how spirit communicates either, right?
No.
Yeah.
And actually, I just for some reason have my like teaching notebook of all
Aw.
my stuff here. I have a lot of these notebooks, all full of stuff. But part of that, when it in the notebook, is spirit will never give you information that is below the normal, your normal intellect frequency.
Mm.
Maybe I haven't clarified that perfectly, but it, and they don't use colloquial words. They speak with absolute clarity.
So to just also for precision's sake, when I was describing Katy in a previous session telling me to like break up with this guy, it wasn't actually Katy, the human being, using that is my Jillian's hindsight interpretation of her compassionately, clearly showing me things about this relationship I was in that were not of truth. So it wasn't like I booked a session with Katy and she was like, "You have to break up with this guy." That is, so I just want to make sure you guys all hear that is how I received what the loving, compassionate communication from spirit was around how I was self-abandoned, helping me see a relationship that I was fighting for in a more truthful, loving way. And in hindsight, what I'm applying now is the label of, oh my gosh, I should have listened then and seen what spirit was trying to show me instead of investing more time. But no, you
But you
didn't.
weren't ready to. You weren't ready to.
Yeah.
And what I've actually in the last 6 months, I have had such an expansive opening,
Mm.
like beyond. This last 6 months has been huge for me. And what has come through is that my work is to be a mirror gate. And I understand that in these sessions, what I do is I be the mirror. a very light mirror because it's not just me, my colleagues are the light ones, but I hold the mirror. And a lot of times people don't want that. It's
Oh,
uncomfortable.
they really don't want that.
But
Yeah.
as you said, sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it is in that moment. That is exactly what I needed. But sometimes there is that inner congestion that's like, nope, I'm not ready. Let's just see, continue. I've got that information. And yeah, it's 4 years later. Okay, now I'm ready.
Yeah, it takes what
Whatever.
it takes. Readiness cannot be forced. And it's
I
beautiful.
found the,
Oh, you go. You found
oh,
the
sorry,
quote.
I
You go
found the
for
quote. Genuine spirit guides will never go below our normal intelligence. All we receive must be above and beyond our normal capacity.
it. Mm.
And the thing is that, and then underneath it, there's no way spirit can control us 100%. That's also important.
Will you
Even in
say that one
trance,
more time?
there is no way spirit can control us 100%, but they can cultivate a trust and awareness in their presence so that we willingly subdue our own desires to accommodate their influence and allow them to guide us in how best we may serve them and humanity.
Mm.
So this is interesting. Beneath, I've put mannerisms, gestures, and speaking in unrecognizable language is almost always the unconscious projection of the medium's desires.
Oh, like they're showboating or something, or somehow.
A little bit, but then I would say that actually with my experience of trance mediumship, where we actually invite the frequency into the embodiment, I've only done this once, and I was like, no, thank you, that's
No,
okay.
that's, yeah, no.
It's too much.
Not for
Um,
me.
no, it wasn't for me either. Uh, that has to be done in a very, very controlled environment. And it's interesting because I've written this years ago with my training. But as I said, in this last 6 months, I have started channeling light language. And it's not just verbally, it comes through my fingers and mannerisms. So it's interesting that I've written this. And as I was reading it, I was like, huh, that's interesting. But I know when I'm stepped aside and when I'm in. And I think I would be very uncomfortable with my training to do those things if it wasn't coming from a totally other space, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It's, it is a little out there. Even for me, I'm still a little like, oh, it's about to come through. Here we go.
So that's newer for you in the last 6 months or so?
Yeah, so I was actually having an acupuncture session, probably actually not that long ago. 6 months I've been on the lead up to it, a lot of dietary stuff and lifestyle stuff, which was already great, got even greater and more in alignment. And then I was in a really deep acupuncture session, and I always go off when I'm lying there, and I find acupuncture and I really resonate.
Mm.
And as I was lying there in my higher consciousness, I suddenly had a visit from the Pleiadians. And this is something that galactic frequencies, I've kind of thought, like, yeah, cool, not my thing. Until they suddenly were right there in my
And
face.
they're there at your
And,
appointment.
and they, and I never had I think I probably had maybe 3 or 4 experiences with angel frequency in an intense way. And that is a huge energy, it's so huge that it goes through the ceiling of my, uh, and the floor, like size wise, massive. So I know when they come in because it would be like an elephant walking in to your space.
Hard to miss.
It's hard to miss, yeah. But this was different. It was not at all like the angelic frequency. And they were so clear in their frequency, color, how they spoke to me was just crystal clear. And they said, we're from uh we're from the Pleiades. Uh we're switching you on as a Blu-ray node.
Mm.
And that was it. And then they left. And I was like, and literally from that moment, I started seeing like sacred geometry in spaces. I started receiving light codes through at night. When I say light codes,
Mm.
it's light, but there's um, it's a language. It's that's not verbal, but you see it and it comes in, and it's almost like my whole body was being reattuned with these light codes. It was, I know it sounds really out there.
It sounds true. I'm sure there are people listening who are going, "Yes, I know what you're saying." And also,
Yes,
it sounds out there, but also it's just what's happening. The light codes right now that we're all receiving or
it's
that are
huge.
available is massive. So
Oh, yeah,
I'm surprised to hear that you've had sort of another awakening or a I don't know how you would describe it, a blasting open, opening to more light, but in the last 6 months, I think a lot of us have been experiencing just a lot of change, disruption, and light, a lot more
yeah,
light.
I would call it an opening into remembrance
Mm.
because so much of what my, I've had my astrology charts done, Western and Vedic. I've had my soul numerology path done, all the stuff. And like, yeah, everything resonates. Great. But what has come through now has given me unbelievable depth of clarity in awareness, perception of all the soul aspects of myself. And, I do past life, past people's past lives come through to me if it's relevant. I can do past life regressions if someone really requests it. But what has come through recently, obviously, we know time is not linear, but it is harmonic. And it's a resonance field. And what we call past lives are not behind us in a straight line. I'm sure those of you listening have heard about it being a holographic experience. All the layers are actually happening at once. And sometimes I myself have had very vivid experiences into my other soul lives, but they're not past. I was in them right then. And they only come really clearly to me because there is some important cohesion moment for it. And I don't even know how we got talking to this, but I'll
The
go with it.
Pleiadians came to you in
Yes,
acupuncture, and the rest is history.
yes. And just like this deep, you know, they told me to imagine your soul. Because I said, well, am I Palladian? And they said, of course, you have huge Palladian lineage. And it just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And I asked, but what about all my past lives that were in, ancient Egypt? Because I have woken up in the night in ancient Egypt and had very, very vivid experiences. And they said, your soul is not like a singular thing. Your soul is like maybe let's say like a giant stained glass window. And the sunlight can shine through every
Pain.
pane, color, and those panes individually might not go into full coherence, but when you see it as one, it all becomes clear. But the life we are so vividly experiencing now, it's because the ray of sunlight is so intensely shining through this pane at the time. But it doesn't mean that that light isn't shining through all the planes simultaneously. We are just fully coherent right now in this one. Because
Brilliant.
time is not linear, so it doesn't matter that we're not missing that other like Egyptian life or whatever, just because we're more fully connected to this one right now. So there's multiple facets of us that are lit up all at once. And yes, some might be yet to come, but they are already felt.
Mm. Mm.
And they all have a harmonic resonance through one another. So the breakthroughs, the healing you have in this life will always have harmonic notes, tones traveling through that entire light space that is your soul.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
It does. It was glorious. I'm just like basking in the imagery. And I think it's so hard. I think so many of us have heard time is not linear, but it's very hard for a lot of us to conceptualize like, well, then what
A
is, if it's
huge
not, right,
concept.
if it's not linear, what is it? If it's not, an arrow, what is it? And I've heard people use imageries of flowers. I've never heard the stained glass. That was phenomenal. Just those different facets of soul expression. And it really does seem like with any sort of healing work, even if you just hone in on one pane of glass, even if you just take this lifetime where I am Jillian and you are Katy, when we embark on any sort of healing journey, if I just heal one little thing about, and maybe it's not so little, maybe it's huge, but I really come to terms with some way I was disrespecting myself or disrespecting others or some wounding, and I heal that, the ripple effects that go outward. So even if my mom or my brother or my dad or my dog or whomever didn't go through their own healing journey, there's a felt resonance as I shift, others around me shift, the
Mm,
past shifts, the future shifts. So
yes.
there's this interconnectedness across space and time and people, where we're really at the end of the day all part of this big, soup of love and light. And it feels really palpable now to me more than ever.
Well, you know, and some lives are heavy, some are more radiant, and each contribute to your total field coherence. And there are certain moments like dreams, meditations, emotional flashes, where that veil between the dimensions thins. And you can merge your awareness across those dimensions and borrow knowledge, wisdom, grief, or gifts, even.
Gifts, yes.
And you can then also, therefore, transmit energy backward and forward in time.
Yes, I do think that's something important just to mention for anyone who is interested in past life regression work. Um, I do think, because I've seen people do it all different ways. For me, the intention behind connecting to another life, another soul expression, should have some sort of healing component, right? I don't think it's something to just do just willy-nilly, but to either go and try to retrieve a lesson, retrieve an embodiment, a gift to then bring online in this expression right here, right now.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Beautiful.
so beautifully put, because it is so important. I feel like a lot of people are interested. It's that like spiritual excitement topic coming up again. Like,
Yes.
hey, what my past lives were, I was this, 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 and this. I'm sure of it. Da, 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 da.
Right. Yeah.
Suddenly, I do the past life, and they're like, I think I had one of my male clients desperate to do past. We'd done a lot of work together. He actually came to me as a complete skeptic. He changed his email address. He had no online presence whatsoever on social media or anything. He gave me a fake name, nothing. He
No
was like, "You
way.
know who I am?" And he was like, "Did you look me up before the session?" And I was like, "No, because if I did that with all my clients, I think I'd go insane." And there are so many people with the same names, like that would be crazy.
No.
And that would be me not trusting
Right. And also,
my
why would
coherence.
you do that? Like, what would
Well,
the,
he
yeah.
was a skeptic. He
Right.
wanted he wanted concrete proof. And
Of
so and he
course.
was a lawyer
Mm.
and he had this real analytical um intelligence. And we did session upon session and we just deep dive. He was a very spiritual person, interestingly, but he wanted that proof. Thankfully, he got it, which is why he kept coming back, and because he trusted that it was coming through from somewhere, not me.
Yeah.
The detail and the precision. And one day he emails me out of the blue. I hadn't seen him maybe for like 6 months. He was like, let's go down the past lives route. And I went, okay, really? Why? Because a lot of the time, sometimes people don't want to take accountability for what's going on in their life. And they
Mm.
want to be like, yeah, it's because in this past life I drowned, so I'm never gonna
Yes. I'm
like
glad you're saying
do
this.
this. Or
Yes. It's
in
an
this past life I
excuse.
had my heart broken by a million men, so I never want to fall in love ever again in this life, or whatever. You can hand over accountability or even want like gravitas to boost our ego
Hmm.
things. But I knew him because I've been working with him for a long time. And so I was like, okay, well, let's see. And I felt like he was excited. I do remember this. I don't remember any of them, but I do remember this because I wrote it down because it made me laugh. I think he was looking for something exciting. He was like, I'm a peasant woman. Somewhere rural France. And like we just go deeper and deeper. And part of the regression is to you may have had hundreds of lives, but we don't have time to go through everything. So it's the ones I set the intention for the ones that are important for the person right now. What do they need to hear from these lives for their lives right now?
Right. Relevance. Yes.
Exactly. And so much of it is they connect into that life and they feel the emotions of the person. They feel the disconnects or the connects, the gifts or the things that really weren't harmonizing. And in I think maybe four lives we touched on in that session, they all were so different, but like normal lives. There was nothing, like he wasn't King Arthur of the Round Table or whatever in that moment. But like the emotional connection that he felt coming out of each one was huge. And how the um, softness rippled through, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Compassion aspect as
Mm.
well. But I guess part of that, I wouldn't just do that session for someone I didn't know. Like with my intuitive development course, it's kind of invitation only. Or
Yeah.
I will put out and I'm doing this. And when I put out and I'm doing this, most of the people who get that are because they've seen me as client. They've seen me as a client. If someone has seen that because someone sent it to them and I don't know them, I will always do like an interview call. I will check with my guys whether this person is right for the field. It's really important because people are making a lot of money in the
Mm.
spiritual world. Um, a lot of people aren't.
Sure.
My,
Balance.
yeah, balance, exactly. But some people are like, yeah, let's get a huge group, get people in, it doesn't
Right.
matter.
Whoever wants to do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, no, no.
but people have to be ready. There has to be a certain amount of self work that has already been done.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
yeah, it's so interesting how things unfold over time.
It sure is. And I know we're both in our own continued unfolding. And
Mm.
I feel I feel very much for at least my own life, more so than ever. I have no idea what's coming. I feel like for,
No, me neither.
and that it's actually kind of a really exciting free fall. And as you were describing earlier, it is a free will choice to surrender aspects of self to spirit. And it's always a free will choice to tap into spirit for spiritual guidance. Um, I also did want to just harken back to you describing this male client as a skeptic, because I do believe Katy is one of the best out there for skeptics because of the way she delivers, detail and precision. It's not just like, oh, your departed grandmother loves you, which is, a beautiful sentiment, but anyone can deliver. I remember Katy describing when my grandma Lee came through, the redness of her hair and the gaudiness of the rings and a bedazzled jean jacket and all these levels of detail. And I'm like, how would this woman in England have any idea that my grandmother liked to bedazzle jean jackets, right? This has to be, so there's just the way that she does deliver information really, I think, can be an opening for. Now, I'm not just trying to send all the skeptics to you, and I'm
Yeah,
not
please
even,
don't. It's very, it's
but I
nice to
do.
have people who aren't concrete blocks turn up.
Okay, okay. For all those who are, ready and ripe, and in perfect alignment for Katy, they will naturally find their way to you, and I don't have to do a single thing. But is there anything you would like to share, just either about your current offerings or anything that's just on your heart or mind about the times we're in before we start to wrap up for today?
I feel like for us sensitives, we are here for a reason. And I feel like the intensity that we especially are feeling at the moment, and obviously we've been through years of political, physical, all kinds of outside intensity being thrown at us. Um, but there's so much energetic intensity going on at the moment, as we touched on with the light codes, what the sun, the which is coherence and consciousness, is sending us for the awakening, the blasts to almost like shake us open that little bit further, do hit. And I feel like there is this, again, that level of excitement, like, oh, stuff's happening. We're here for it. But there's also it opens us up in quite a powerful way that actually maybe the timeline's going so fast, we're being called to heal, see, hear, deal with parts of ourselves in such a sudden way at this time that things might be turning up on a daily basis, like, oh, so I'm gonna have to look at this now, and wow, another thing's coming up, this deep ancestral thing that is, you know, coming through my mum, and it's affecting me in this way. And it's all happening in quite a small timeline, you know, and
Suddenly.
that's a lot. And so for us right now, rest is super important. Might be feeling very physically, energetically tired. And so to sleep, we need sleep as these new codes settle in. We also need to be grounding, nourishing ourselves really effectively with compassion and physical nourishment with the right things. Loads of hydration is super important. I've done a lot of that recently and I put it on my Instagram because I've just felt it is huge with these frequency. You know, if you see the Schumann resonance has been spiking so intensely and the solar bursts that we're getting, we must have that water to help or our own electromagnetism flowing through us to keep flowing.
Yes.
'Cause these old stagnancies that are being blasted to us, we need the physical water to help our energy flow as well.
Yes, and definitely check out what Katy recently posted. I'll have all of her information in the description about water, just what water are you drinking and what vessel. I recently started using a copper vessel for most of my water, which is, I think, from Ayurvedic traditions, but
Mhm.
not just drinking water. The first thing most of my client is like, we're not drinking tap water. So if you're in tap water land, run. But whatever, filtered water you can get, and there's all sorts of ways to elevate your water, to structure your water. There's a water rabbit hole you can go down. And Katy, it sounds like you've gone down a bit of it and are
Oh
feeling
yeah.
differences, big
Yeah.
differences by changing your water. Yeah.
And barefoot out in nature, getting your eyes on outside, getting your eyes outside in the first 90 minutes of the sunrise. The sun is emitting really important codes for our body during that time.
Mm.
Same with the sunset. That's why in all ancient traditions, all ceremonies were done at sunrise or sunset because it's the most powerful time for the physical and energetic coherence. And, I guess, especially when what I realized when I raise my vibration to connect with spirit and go through my protocol, what I do is I now see it as I'm stepping into the purest field of coherence. Because coherence is everything. It is not just spirit, it is not just energy. Coherence, I feel, is a word that gets the entire structure of absolutely everything. And that's when we can start going with the plasma light, which I now understand what it is. And when I'm in that field of coherence, I can communicate with it. I can move it. I can see it. I can understand what it's trying to tell us. But we have to be choosing coherence and then stepping out of that pure field of coherence to be back in our embodiment. And I feel like that's the most important lesson. Embodiment is to be the living temple. So to bring what we experience in our meditations, in our channeling, in those moments of pure coherence into embodiment.
Yes. So then you wind up being the walking prayer essentially, and you remain a compassionate and caring person, not just, in the channeling space, and then you snap at your partner, or, of course we're all human and imperfect, but the idea being that we're embodying the medicine and the light that moves through us and able to ground it in so that we can eventually create more of that heaven on earth, that new earth, a world that's everyone's radiating beams of light, and
Yes.
we're all sending light and love to each other. And
Yeah.
lately I've been able to sort of feel it like blasting out of my organs in a way that is newer. And yeah, there's just infinite possibilities in this everything plasma light soup. I don't know why soup is the imagery that keeps coming through
Well,
for
it
me today.
is. It is. It's liquid air. It's vapor. It's everything. It's that. I feel like it's that matter that all the quantum physicists are trying to
Right. Come up with the theory about.
really understand, and no one's wanting to no one's able to fully quantify
Totally.
that it is not something that is around us. It is something that is us.
Is
We are
us.
it, and there is no separation.
Yes, and I'm glad you again emphasized the grounding, how imperative it is, and eyes off of our screens, some time away from our screens and in nature, receiving the actual light codes outside in the sun. I know that it might not be possible for everyone if you're in an urban environment to, get out in nature all the time, but there are micro moments, whether it's just a patch of grass that you put your bare feet on, or so many ways we can just give ourselves these little doses of grounding, of embodiment, just coming back to right here, right now, and not getting sucked into the portal that a lot of our technology is, and then everything that comes with that portal. And then, outside influences, fear, all sorts of propaganda and scare tactics, and also information about what is really happening. There really is genocide. There's really all sorts of real things happening on the planet right now that are not feeling like love and light. And that's also equally true. And so we all have to take care of our vessels in the way that helps us be the most responsible and compassionate channels we can be to, enact good on the earth.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Well,
So true.
thank you so much, Katy, for being here. It has been absolutely brilliant just spending time with you, hearing a bit more about your journey from, almost hiding away your incredible gifting to starting to explore it in the safety and protection of just your own awareness, to then sharing it professionally and being such a powerful teacher and space holder and healer. So thank you for sharing your light with me and with the listeners. I'm so happy we got to spend this time together.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, maybe we'll do this
Go for
again.
hours.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jillian, for doing this and the space you hold as well.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure. I hope you guys enjoyed. And again, check out the description box to see how you can reach out to Katy and learn more about her and her offerings. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day wherever you are. Lots of love. Thank you so much for tuning in to It's Time with Jillian Melissa. If you're feeling like it's time to leave that toxic relationship, launch that business, share your voice with the world. If you're feeling like it's time for whatever, it probably is. So I invite you to trust your intuitive compass. And if you're feeling like it's time to connect with me, I invite you to follow me on Instagram at JillianMelissa_intuition. That's really the hub of all my content, and using the link in bio, my link tree, you can access links to book a private session with me. You can join my monthly membership community through Patreon. I post upcoming workshops, group channeling classes, intuitive guidance gatherings, and much more. So that's really the best way to stay connected with my energy. My hope is that you bestow love on all those who cross your path. And until we meet again, I love you.